Welcome to the Extreme Agile Servant Leadership. Your dream team is waiting. Our speaker today is Brittain Silver. And a little bit of background on Brittain. She has been a extreme agile servant leader working in the tech industry for over 20 years. I've had the good fortune to have the opportunity to work on the same team as Brittain. She's energetic and very knowledgeable on the subject. I am sure you will find her presentation enlightening. The track session is for 40, this is a little housekeeping. Track session is for 45 minutes. Questions and answers will be at the end of her presentation. Please enter your questions in the chat window. And depending on the number of questions, we might not be able to get a chance to get to all of them, but Brittain will have either her contact information or I will give her all the questions that were in the chat. Over to you, Brittain. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Ellen. And I just want to say specifically, thank you, Ellen Quinn, who is my moderator and also one of my role models for amazing servant leadership. I was so grateful when I got the invitation to be here with you all. I spent a lot of time preparing this because I was thinking about you all and wanted you to really get something meaningful out of this, because I know that this is your time. And first day of Business 101 class in my freshman year of college, the professor got up and said, what is the most valuable commodity you all have? Some people said money and other things, but it's time, because you can't get any more of it. So I was very conscientious that you all are taking time to spend here with me today. I ask that you will please turn off all distractions and come be here now. Let yourself be here now. So to wake us up and get us started, we've got our first polling question. Can we start the first polling question, please? I can't tell if we got it through or not.
Yeah, it's on. We have 85% participated. Tell me when you want me to stop.
Okay. All right, that's great.
Okay, so I'll share the results. Can you see?
Yes. So 91% of the people are wearing pants. 9% are not wearing pants. And so I just little blurb about how the pandemic and virtual work have changed our lives. And I'm not wearing pants. I'm going to do this whole presentation pantsless because I'm wearing a cute little skirt. But that wakes everybody up. I'm glad you're here with me. I was very conscientious about your time and you all being willing to spend this with me. So first off, who am I and why would anyone listen to anything I have to say? I have had a long career in tech. When I first got out of college, I moved to California because I wanted to be a writer, producer, and a stand-up comedian in film and television. And to supplement those dreams, while I built up my resume working in entertainment, working on film projects and film and television projects, I did a lot of temp jobs, consulting, contract work, and I really did not enjoy them in the beginning. I actually confided in a friend that I felt like a prostitute at the job sometimes. And so the thing is that working in the entertainment industry in the late 90s and early 2000s was very different than it is now. People could have sex and do drugs in the office. They could abuse you. They could throw things at you. They could scream at you. They could tell you were stupid. It was really, really tough, but I stuck it out and I built up a resume. I worked for free as a production assistant, got a resume going, got some contacts, and eventually I worked up my way up to a paid position on a short film. I wanted a more regular ability to pursue my dreams, but also have more of a normal life and not things that are so intense. And then you wonder where the work's coming, but you're exhausted, so you don't know if the work's going to come. And that's what film and television production is kind of like. So I went and took a job at E! Entertainment Networks, and a new CEO came on board and she cut the company in half. And that's when I decided I would depart from entertainment. But then I lived in LA and Hollywood, and the best place for me to go and get jobs working in tech And in project management was at the big studios there. Then I even picked up some Gen, put some biotechnology on my resume. Then I moved up to San Francisco because I got recruited by a VP, and I got to put .com and tech on my resume. Then all of this is through FTE contract and temporary work. I got to go inside and be at these big organizations and these companies, and I got to see their solutions, their problems, and how they were managing them. And some of these organizations like Warner Brothers Studios, you would think they must have the best of the best. They have all these resources. They must have the best processes, the best applications, the bleeding edge technology. But what I found frequently is that you would go inside and it was a manual process with one guy just cranking it out in the back. And so I could, of course, help them by bringing them other solutions that I'd seen at these other organizations that I've been inside. My husband, who had moved up to San Francisco for my career, then got a job in DC, and I owed him a move for his career. So when I moved there, I started working in government and federal companies and having a lot of great experiences. So I love contracting, consulting. I love going places and doing project work. And this isn't even all the places that I've been inside and worked at in my career, but it's a little exhausting to put all of them on here. So that's me and my story. What I'm going to talk to you about today, we're going to talk about agile methodology, then I'm going to go over servant leadership, and then we're going to talk about what makes it extreme. I'm going to tell you how to go extreme. All right, so let me tell you the story. Once upon a time, the agile methodology was born in a land far, far away called Utah. Yes, this is a very famous image that I'm putting up here. This was credited with the birth of the agile methodology, but it wasn't really. We'll talk about that in a minute. So a bunch of agile developers and software and technology professionals gathered in Utah to do some skiing, some eating, some relaxing, and then to work on some issues that they'd had in their industry. And so I'm going to read this out loud. You may have heard it before, but I think it's important for us to look at it again. Manifesto for Agile Software Development. We are uncovering better ways of developing software by doing it and helping others do it. Through this work, we have come to value individuals and interactions over processes and tools, working software over comprehensive documentation, customer collaboration over contract negotiation, responding to change over following a plan. That is, while there is value in the items on the right, we value the items on the left more. For me, when I discovered Agile as a young project manager, it was like a religion for me because I was thinking about leaving the industry. Again, I was going to have to make another big career change. And then I discovered this, and it just removed so many of the obstacles and issues, and we could just get to work. We didn't have to stress out, oh, we're not following this linear plan or meeting these milestones. Where's all the documentation? Did you get it? And instead of going and being like a whip cracker, I could actually collaborate and help people meet their goals and help us get more value out. One of the things that is especially important about Agile is the F word, flexibility. That's very key. Collaboration, very high in collaboration. You know, you go, you do some work, come back, show it to people, find out, get some feedback, find out what could be better. Continuous improvement. We're going to talk more about that later, but I believe continuous improvement is the key to life and anything. I'm actually writing a book about how you can apply the Agile methodology to manage your personal life better. Breaking down work into smaller pieces. I have a friend who says, we're going to eat this elephant one bite at a time. And he does a great job of managing teams. His teams love him. And it really is, anytime you have this big, massive piece of work, cut it up into smaller pieces. That's the heart of Agile. Allowing for frequent feedback. We're going to talk about keeping a 360 feedback loop later on. We'll go into feedback and how important it is more. Quick adaptation to change. I think that's key to life. Everybody needs to learn how to adapt to change better. I'll talk more about that too. Freedom from the rigid linear plan. That was one of the things that I loved. It made me believe it was a religion. And then focus on value. Value. Is what we're doing actually providing value? So this approach was considered bleeding edge at the time, you know, the hottest thing, kind of crazy. And here's the 12 principles of Agile, promoting a culture of continuous learning. I'm not going to read all of these to you, But what I do want to say is that, number one, the focus on value. What is really adding value and how do we measure it and its quality level? I think there is no situation where you couldn't ask those questions and it wouldn't improve things. It wouldn't help you have a better, at least a better outlook. Welcome change, even at the last minute. Agility is highly focused and dependent on managing change and how change is managed. Number three, deliver frequently and often. Focus on continuous iteration is what I get out of there. Keep going, a constant pace, continually putting out value, continually getting the work done. What are small pieces that we can finish? Small pieces of finished work. Number four, people working together. Oh my gosh, when I was a young project manager, I had a senior project manager coaching me, and he said, do never, ever let the team talk to the business. Because he was thinking about experiences he'd had where he had let the engineers talk to the business and it had confused the business or upset them because they didn't use layman's terms and they weren't supported clearly in communicating. But that's really a revolution there. That was an idea where it was like, oh no, this is a big no-no. This is a rule. Like the project manager is the only one to be that liaison. Maybe a couple of other leaders, but not the team. The team should not talk to them. So number five, I believe you should hire people who are smarter than you, give them everything they need to succeed, and then get out of their way. And come check in regularly, say, hey, is there something you need from me? Or you feel like you're succeeding? How's it going? That's how I interpret number five. Number six, I just have to say, nothing compares to face-to-face communication. And the pandemic really did a number on a lot of people in being able to just communicate with someone in person. Also, I think young people struggle more than others. I think we're becoming a nation of text cowards. I think we're starting to have deep personal conversations that should be at least held over the phone, but usually in person, better in person, through text and email. And you should not, the text and email are for short little points. You got to pick up the phone and call someone if it's something really important, right? Or if you want the communication to flow. Nothing compares to face-to-face communication. I cannot find anything that makes the work flow faster. We have all this technology for doing virtual work, and yet we still struggle so much. Not following a plan, not documentation. What is the primary measure of quality and productivity? That's number seven. So again, ask this in any situation and you will get meaningful insight. Maybe it's your marriage or your relationship with your family or friends. If you stop and actually ask that, you'll be shocked at the insights that you get. Maintaining a constant pace in anything is key, right? Life is a marathon. So I couldn't agree more with 8. Attention to excellence. Our keynote speaker was so amazing. He had such great things. Dr. Dalal was so great this morning. I loved hearing him. I'm actually going to go back and watch it again because I really wanted to think about what he had to say more. And finally, maximizing the amount of work not done. I think that there are so many times in life when we stress out about details and we don't stop and go, what's really important? What do we really need here, right? That's why we do things like straw men or prototypes. And we say, where is the value? What can we cut out of here? That I think you should approach life with that simplicity. The best architectures, requirements, and designs emerge from self-organizing teams. I would take number 11 a step further and say the best of everything emerges when people take initiative. Strong, proactive leaders are on the team, not just leading the team, but actually on the team and not in a leadership position. So number 12, oh my gosh, number 12 is about my favorite thing to do with Agiles, okay? At regular interviews, you're gonna stop, you're gonna reflect, and then tune and adjust. Regular intervals, that's key. Not like, okay, we're done with the project now, it's been 5 years, how'd we do? Let's do some lessons learned. Retrospectives are the ceremony that I love the most in Agile. I do a little retrospective myself at the end of every day for myself. What did I do well? What could I have done better? What actions am I going to take tomorrow so that I can do better tomorrow than I did today? I do that in my bed before I go to sleep. My husband and I do a retrospective at the end of every year. What were we able to do financially? What were we able to do for our children? What's worked for us? What trips did we take? What experiences did we have? A lot of people do that. So these principles, I believe, can be applied, of course, when you're doing Agile, when you're managing projects or work, but I also think they can be added to many other areas in our lives. Okay, moving on. So those people in Utah did not invent Agile. What they did was they created an umbrella that we could put the frameworks for it, the practices and the frameworks for it underneath that umbrella and say, this is part of an adaptive Agile approach to software. Kanban and Scrum, a lot of people know those. Extreme programming, a lot of people don't know the extreme programming practices or feature-driven development, but all of them go back to the same thing. Fast, iterative, putting it out, focusing on value, quality, all of it is Agile. So those people did not invent it. They do not get credit for saying they invented it, because Agile, actually, a lot of the credit goes to Toyota. Toyota gets a lot of credit. They invented Lean. They invented Kaizen. Kaizen means continuous improvement. And so manufacturing was already using it. On the Toyota assembly line, anyone, leadership, CEO, janitor, who sees a problem or an issue in the assembly line as the cars are going through, can step back, pull the line, and stop it. Anybody can, so that they can correct that and say, hey, we gotta correct this issue, and then start it back up again. And they empowered all of their workers to do that. There were lots of other people who were doing things too. You see Jeff Sutherland, Jim Copeland, Larry Constantine, and Ken Schwaber. Those were some of the people who were in Utah in February of 2001. So people say that they invented Agile, but they really didn't. As you can see from this timeline, lots of people had been using it and talking about it as a better way, not just for software development, but you know who else was using it? Yeah, that's right, Osama bin Laden. Our enemies were actually using Agile methodology to wage their war against us. So our military had to step up and start practicing Agile, because Al-Qaeda in Iraq could move quickly, strike ruthlessly, and then vanish into the civilian population. General Stanley McChrystal details this in his book, Team of Teams, to talk about how they were actually able to get them. They had to have management practices that could scale to thousands of people, right? They had to get over 100 years of wisdom out of all those people's heads and say, we are doing something new now, something different. He actually goes in depth how he talks about how he had to eliminate the chain of himself from the chain of command. He had to empower the people on the ground who had opportunities and let them make their own decisions, because he realized by the time they walked down the hall to his office and told him about it and he signed off, the opportunity was gone. That was a big deal for a military general. It's a big deal for the United States military, period. But they're all changing. They're all becoming faster, flatter, and more flexible. That chain of command was so ingrained in the military. I think at first it was difficult for them to accept it. Stanley had to really work with them to get them to understand, you are in charge now, you have an opportunity, you need to take it. So that's one place I definitely recommend reading his book. Another industry, so we've got manufacturing, military, other industries that are using it as well. We've got government using it, we've got education. There are teachers who will do 2-week sprints where they focus intensely on one subject for 2 weeks, then they move on to something next. Marketing uses it, healthcare uses it, energy, construction is using it. And it's definitely something that I think airlines are using too. So there's a story about Southwest Airlines. They decreased their flight takeoff time by 45 minutes by using Agile methodology. They said, okay, we have a flight checklist of everything we have to get done before we can take off. They were using a linear plan. They said, let's pull some of those tasks forward. Where's the waste? Maximize the amount of work not done. So that was when they cut out certain steps, pulled certain activities forward. Instead of having to wait an hour and a half for takeoff, now their passengers only have to wait 45 minutes. And there's more. There's so many more examples of people using Agile in different industries. It's starting to take over everything. In fact, I believe that this is the best way for us to manage everything that's happening in modern times. For example, we have natural disasters, Texas floods, California fires. I don't know if anyone knows people who were in Texas, but there were over 100 people missing or dead from the floods recently. One of my beloved neighborhoods that I used to really enjoy spending time in Los Angeles, California, burned to the ground. It's completely gone. Pacific Palisades is no longer there. My husband had 2 cousins who lived there, and thank goodness nothing happened to them, but their house, everything, all their possessions, totally gone. We've got technology. How many passwords do you have? How many applications and processes do you have to learn that are new? How many times do you have to update your OS and remember when that's going to happen or know when that's going to happen and make sure you get it done so you don't have any technical issues? Technology is changing the world so much that I had a doctor actually tell me that all of us are getting ADD from it. So not only do we have all these new things that are coming at us that we have to focus on, but we also have ADD now. And the other thing is geopolitical issues. That causes changes and stress all the time. Some people say that we're in a Cold War here in America. Everybody knows about Ukraine. There's a war in the Middle East. There's wars in Africa and South America, and all kinds of things that we worry about when we watch the news too much, which, by the way, you're supposed to control your media diet. Apparently, studies show we get depressed if we watch too much news. But we have to use the agile methodology if we are going to survive in a world with these levels of complexity and constant change. We have to embrace these ideas, in my view. So let's talk about servant leadership. Servant leadership has been used for a long, long time. Robert Greenleaf does get credit for formalizing it, the idea of it, in an essay in 1970 called The Servant as a Leader. But even he's credited it and said, I got the idea from this from a book called Journey to the East, a novel, a fictional novel by Hermann Hesse. So this story is about a group of men in a secret society who are on a journey and all of the adventures and things that happen to them. But at the end, the narrator realizes that the man who had been their servant, he carried their equipment, he built their fire for them, he cooked and served their food, he hardly ever spoke, found out that he was a great leader among his people and realized that he had been leading them the whole time. They had thought he was their servant, but he had actually been leading them. And there were incidents that he remembered, like, for example, one time when he told everybody to be quiet so the navigator could focus and do his job, the way that he would tell them stories at night while they were eating by the fire to re-energize them and help them for the long journey they had to do the next day. All of these things made a huge difference. And he realized, I'm not going to tell you the end of the story because you all should go and read it. But that was when he realized that the man that he thought was their servant had actually been guiding them and leading them forward. Okay, so here's the 7 pillars of servant leadership. The first thing, persons of character. This person makes ethical and principle-centered decisions. They maintain integrity and they demonstrate humility and they serve a higher purpose. That's what a person of character does, according to servant leadership, right? And then number 4, put people first. We'll talk more about that in a little bit, but that's what it sounds like, right? Number 3, skilled communicators. I have a degree in communications and I have to do a lot of communicating nonstop all the time for my work and also in my personal life. And I still find it a constant struggle because communication is difficult and it has gotten more difficult for all of us with the inventions of these technologies. We think it's gotten easier, but it's made it more complex. Compassionate collaborators. Well, you all know what compassion means and you know what collaboration means. But a compassionate collaborator is someone who doesn't just put out some listening techniques or, says positive things, gives positive feedback, listens. It's so much deeper than that. We'll talk a little bit more about that. So number 5, having foresight. I think this is the most difficult one to explain. So the servant leader that has foresight imagines possibilities, anticipates the future, proceeds with clarity and thinks and clarity of purpose, clarity of vision. This person also takes courageous and decisive action. A lot of organizations fail because the leadership could not make decisions fast enough. And I think none of us want to make decisions fast, but we have to make so many decisions these days in modern world that becoming someone who can take in all the information, weigh it, and then give out, I'm going to be courageous and make a decisive action here is a challenge. It's really, really hard. Systems thinkers. I bet you've heard more about system thinking in some of the other places that you've been, other talks that you've joined today. And so it's just like it sounds. I'll talk a little more about that. But, the thing about being a systems thinker is that you have to think and act strategically, right? You got to lead change effectively. You have to balance the whole with the sum of its parts. It's a challenge. You have to be comfortable with complexity, and you have to demonstrate adaptability. You have to demonstrate your adaptability as a system thinker, and you have to consider the greater good. That's just touching on system thinking a little bit. The last one, leading with moral authority. So, are you worthy of respect? Do you believe that you're worthy of respect? I believe you all are. I'm sure you are. But that's a question that is hard for me to ask myself sometimes. And then this person, the moral authority person, also inspires trust and confidence because they know you're not trying to manipulate them. So they want to be a part of the team. They want to work. They want to get things done. Establish quality standards. Someone who has the moral authority establishes quality standards for performance. They accept and they delegate responsibility, and they create a culture of accountability and transparency. These are key. Accountability and transparency are key to being agile. So talking about what do agile servant leaders do, right? We've got agile now. We've talked about agile. We're talking about servant leaders a little bit there. I gave you a lot of information to digest on those things. So an agile servant leadership, just like what you would imagine based on what I just told you. They are not whip crackers, obviously. They are not command and control, telling people what to do. They are absolutely people who are empowering the team and encouraging them to lead themselves. What you want as a team, that when they're done, they will say, we did it ourselves. They will not say, oh, thank God we had this leader. We were so lost. She came in and did everything for us. No, they will say, we're so proud that we did this together. But you'll know that you did your duty as an effective agile servant leader because you were a facilitator, right? Rather than dictating, you facilitated. You were a coach and a mentor. Something that a lot of people don't know, but if you give to people, if you help someone succeed without an expectation of anything in return personally, it will come back to you. Like some people may describe that as karma, but it will come back to you. I've seen it over and over again, especially professionally. I've seen it personally too, but I have seen it professionally. If you set someone up for success and you help them succeed, it will absolutely come back to you. Encouraging experimentation. Yeah, if they don't think that they can try new things, they're never going to do anything better. They're never going to bring in any innovation or creative problem solving to your team if they don't think they can try new stuff. And then freedom to fail, learning from failures, but also giving them the message, it is okay for you to make mistakes. As long as we fix it, we learn and grow and fix it, right? Free to fail, failing forward, failing fast. These are all ideas that come with Agile. I've heard them in many different environments. If your folks don't feel like they can make mistakes and they can fail, you are never going to have an effective dream team. You're never going to have an effective team. People have to be able to make mistakes. Otherwise, they're going to take all their innovation and they're going to channel it into doing CYA, making sure they get to keep their jobs or they get to keep their position or whatever it is that they're doing the work for. Celebrating successes and learning from setbacks. Okay, so I'm sure, I'm going to take another poll. Let's answer in the chat, okay? I want to see yes or no. Have you ever experienced someone, a leader, telling you that saying, thank you so much for a good job. keep going, or and let's make sure we get all these things done, or don't celebrate too much. If you have ever experienced that, type yes in the chat right now. Yeah, lots of yeses. I don't think you can get out of working and not have experienced that at least once. And it's such a common mistake. I had some leaders that I was coaching make that mistake just last week. It was very, very disheartening. But they don't know because they're feeling a sense of urgency. And sometimes leaders are afraid that people will spend too much time celebrating and not stay focused, or be exhausted and not take a breath, or take too long and settle back and kind of feel burnt out. What do you get when you don't let people's success and really focus on the celebration of successes, talk about success and focus on the celebration of their successes? And you get people who are burnt out and don't want to work for you or with you anymore. Continuously seek feedback and improve their own leadership practices. That's that last bullet there. So it is just really important, talking about a 360 feedback loop. Feedback is your best tool for managing perception and for managing the culture of your team. We'll talk more about that later. So the biggest focus in Agile is on the people. This is a wonderful quote from a vice president that I worked for when I was a full-time employee at Levi Strauss & Co. He said to all of us, you can have the best practices, processes, and systems in the world, but it is people that make it work. And if you lose sight of that as a leader, you will fail. You will fail, or you'll just be mediocre, maybe. It is one of the most important things. Nothing can be achieved without the people. We have so much available to us. We're living in a day and age where we have access to information and education more than we ever have in the history of the world. We should all be going around like big smiles on our face and like, wow, all of this technology is amazing. I love it. And yet we're all very stressed out. Mental health issues are on the rise. A lot of people are feeling cranky about things, and instead of appreciating it, we frequently feel stressed out and annoyed by it. Behind all of those great technologies are always people, and we're not going to manage anything, move forward at all, if we don't start to focus a little more on each other and human-centered design. That's one of my favorite things that I've learned about recently, where you focus on all the touch points, including the developers and the customers, of course, in a process or in a system. And you say, someone touches it here and they have to do this. So let's design it for that person. So that person can go in and make quick changes, or that person can have free iterative flow while they're using it. It's always people that make it work. All right, so now we're gonna go into the extreme part. I'm gonna talk to you about how to be extreme. Okay, you probably already know what I'm getting ready to tell you, but these are the hard questions that extreme agile servant leaders have to ask themselves. You have to grow as a person. You have to become a better person. So are you actively trying to become a better person all the time? I mean, what does that actually mean, right? When you ask yourself that question, am I trying to grow personally? Well, one thing it means is, are you willing to tolerate growth? Tolerate discomfort so you can make it through growth, so you can grow. That's a big part of it. So who are you as a person? What is your legacy? What are you going to leave behind? What are they going to say at your funeral? These are good questions to ask. Do you have a moral code that cannot be broken? What would break your moral code if you have one? It's important for me as a person, I think, to ask myself that, because I've had very large budgets at my disposal, and I've seen peers and people above me misuse the money, but they could get away with it. So they didn't think there was anything wrong with it, and everyone else was doing it. And at the time I said to myself, I know I'm new here, but I know that's not right. And I'm not going to do that. It's harder than I'm making it sound, though. What else? I mean, do you need to go to therapy? Have you, been putting it off because you don't want to go do your family of origin work to get over your issues? Like, You don't want to go sit and talk to a stranger and talk about how all your food issues go back to when your dad wouldn't buy you an ice cream when you were 5 years old. That makes sense. But I recommend therapy. I've done it. I've gone and gotten counseling for myself and my family at various points in time during crises and stressful times in our lives. And it has made a huge difference. So, but that's not the only way to grow. You can read self-help books. You can just go and ask someone to be your peer, your mentor, that you can come and talk to. Having someone to bounce things off of. Say, you know, I got really angry and I don't know why. I have no idea what made me do that. Or this made me feel depressed. I feel demotivated, burnt out. There has to be someone that you can bounce those things off of, even if you just want to hear yourself say them out loud. That's a great way to grow. But it's not fun. And it's uncomfortable. It can almost be outright painful. But you will never grow beyond where you are now if you don't allow yourself to feel that pain and that discomfort so you can grow. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey has a lot of agile and servant leadership principles in it. It's actually kind of become a classic now. I've heard people start to describe it as a classic. Stephen Covey built a whole empire off of just this book alone. He has a whole system that people follow. He was the first one to come up with the idea that you should think win-win. That's not what we hear a lot, especially in the 80s. People were saying things like, be a shark, destroy your competition. You know, we've got Shark Tank. We're telling people to be vicious and competitive and go after people. This was a radical idea back then. He actually had a client who said, you know, we employed that philosophy and we had a client take advantage of us. And he said, so why'd you go for lose-win? And he said, we didn't. And he said, well, who won? They did. Who lost? We did. He goes, you have to set boundaries. You could be a good person, but don't close that deal or make that thing happen unless you actually have the feeling that everybody is getting a win, right? Not just you. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. That's habit number 5. And I think it's wonderful because I have never seen a situation get better when people just come in and start communicating and emoting and putting messaging out there and they don't take a pulse or listen. Nothing can be changed if it's just you shouting out stuff, shouting out, delegating and shouting out orders. It just doesn't work. And the other thing too is a lot of employers ask Stephen, they would make complaints and say things like, I have the feeling that my employees, no matter how much I paid them or what I did for them or how nice I was to them, they would still just stand around at the water cooler talking if I was there. And the thing is that if you don't actually care about people, they're going to know it. It doesn't matter how much you pay them or what perks you give them or what you allow them to do. And empathetic listening techniques, if you don't actually care about people, are just pathetic. So I could teach you all the empathetic learning listening techniques and learning techniques and interaction and collaborating techniques of being compassionate collaborators and all these different things. But if you just don't have it inside you, if it's not part of your spirit, people will know. They'll know. And they'll just feel like everything you do is meant to manipulate them. All right. The biggest thing for extreme agile servant leaders is they have to evolve away from the ego. Now, I'm not saying get rid of your ego or stomp it down or feel bad about yourself or say, I'm so humble and humiliated and, don't hide your light. Be as bright as you can. Just like Dr. Bilal said to us this morning, let your spark show and it'll spread to other people. You have to have a healthy ego to be able to lead, to perform, to get things done. You should have a healthy ego, but you got to check it, right? I check my ego every morning before I start work, before I go in and start interacting with people at work. I go, okay, where's my headspace out? Where's my ego at? Okay, I had a fight with my husband this morning, so I might be feeling a little defensive. I haven't had enough coffee, so I'm probably a little cranky. So I need to get some coffee, and then I need to give myself some positive self-talk and just spend time listening to others and trying to have empathy and understand what they're saying today. Instead of like being defensive, barking orders, being a mean boss. Empowering and developing team members means treating them the way that you want to be treated. It's a simple idea, but it's really hard sometimes to do. So I always say, check your ego at the door. That's one good place to start. Extreme agile servant leaders are empathetic. Empathy is not what everybody says it is. It's a buzzword now. It's so popular. But I have to tell you, it's about understanding and getting inside people's heads and really believing in and understanding what they do. Compassion, I got to tell you, if you're threatening people, threatening to fire people as a means of motivating them to do their jobs better or work harder, that is not leadership. That is coercion. And the HR department at your organization will probably come and get upset with you if you do that. The 360 feedback loop. Ask them, how am I doing as a manager? You can do this in your life. You can go to your kids and say, how am I doing as a mother, right? You can say to your husband, your spouse, your partner, your friends, anybody in your life and say, how am I doing? Do you have some feedback for me? The key is tell them that you love positive feedback, but you crave the constructive feedback, because that's where your opportunities to grow lie. And to this day, when I go to get that constructive feedback, I can still feel the hair stand up on the back of my neck, because it sends our brain into that defensive mode, that lizard brain, the prehistoric brain. It is designed to defend us, right? When we take those comments as an attack. So you, again, got to check that ego, check that mindset, but make sure you get that constructive feedback. That's how you manage perception. That's how you manage issues. You may be putting out something really positive, but if you're not getting any feedback, you don't realize that you're actually offending someone or just not helping. Empower and develop others. The good things that you do, the ways that you help other people succeed, it's always going to come back to you. And if you don't do it on a team, they're never going to work hard for you. They're never going to work any harder than they have to. Stop thinking in levels. Einstein said that he taught the CEO and the janitor the same. It's important that we recognize and value our interdependence, right? So the 3 levels of maturity that Stephen Covey talked about is we're born into the world and we're dependent. We grow up, we mature, and we become independent. And then the final elevation for maturity is we recognize and value interdependence and realize we are all dependent on each other. So I would like to ask you all to do something with me right now. I'd like us to just take 1 minute. I will keep time. I'm going to do this with you too, if you feel able to. I want to spend 1 minute thinking of some of those people who have loved us and wanted what was best for us in our life. Those people who have encouraged you to become who you are today. Would you do that with me? If you would be willing to do this, please type yes in the chat. Okay, let's go ahead. I don't think we have a whole minute, but
Nope.
let's just.
I think we only have a couple minutes left, Brittain, but
Okay. Let's take 30 seconds and do this together. I'll keep time. Would you do this with me?
yep.
Okay. Thank you so much for being here with me today, for listening to me, and for being present. I really appreciate it a lot. I hope you did too. And if you want to continue down this journey, you can go learn more about Agile, servant leadership, lean into that constructive feedback. Don't be afraid of it. Find opportunities to grow personally, and go find someone that you think is difficult for you and that you think is in a lower level than you, and take some kind of action. Help them, get to know them better to change your view. Those are some possible action items. I'm sorry we didn't have more time for questions. I think we're all out of time, right?
Yeah, we are pretty
Yeah.
much out of time, but if there are any questions, we can certainly make sure you get them, Brittain, if people want to leave them
Thank
in,
you.
in
And
the chat.
I will make myself available. You can feel free to direct message me on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I was going to say that'd be great. Did you want to share your slides and we can post them on the
I do.
site? Okay, that'd be
Yes, I
great.
will be sharing the slides too.
Thanks everyone for joining us today. Like I said, Brittain is one of my favorite people, and I'm so glad that everyone could join us and see that. So thank you.
Have a good night.